Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria from Keep It Holistic, where I talk about healthy living, motherhood, and more. And today I'm going to be talking about how to eat healthy on a budget. And so, first of all, I hope that this video is not too dark. It is currently like overcast and snowing outside, so it's a little tricky with the light. So I'm sitting as close to the window as possible. But I'm going to be talking about how we manage to eat healthy, how we are able to eat whole foods on a budget, because especially with the inflation right now, it's really crazy. You go into the grocery store and the prices are just a little bit insane. Like things are up like $1 or $2 more than they were like a year ago. So even for like a family like ours, it's still like, it's tricky, when you go to the store, it can be difficult, and you have to make the decision sometimes, like, do I buy this locally? Do I buy this at the store? What's the best price? Do I need to buy like some conventional stuff? I can't get organic. So I'm going to be going over like what our strategy is, and hopefully this will help you as well. So my first tip, and this may seem really obvious, but it is to make a list before you go grocery shopping, or if you're buying stuff at the farmer's market. You make sure you have some kind of idea of what you're looking for. I personally can't even go to the grocery store without a list, because all the selection of stuff, I have to know exactly what I'm getting so that I don't get like distracted. Also, when you go to the grocery store and if you're like hungry or something, you may end up buying stuff you don't mean to, or if you're with your kids, you'll buy like, chips or something like that, and you didn't mean to get those. So it's best to make a list, because then that'll help you stick to your budget. You'll have an idea about how much you're going to be spending. Because I make lists all the time, I can tell by looking at the list, like, okay, this is going to be $100, it's going to be $200. You get a good idea before you go to the store. So my next tip, and this may be like a little against like what some other people do. I know like right now people are doing pantry challenges. That's where you use up everything in your pantry and you kind of like let it run down low. And I personally would not advise that. Maybe it might be fun to do a pantry challenge once in a while, but most of the time I advise to keep your pantry stocked. And the reason for that is because if you let it run really low, like then you end up having to buy a whole bunch of stuff at once. And I find it easier and more manageable on a budget to make sure you kind of stay on top of it and get things as you run out, because otherwise, yeah, you're gonna have like a huge grocery bill all at once. So my third tip is to buy in bulk. And the reason for this, and I know a lot of other people that eat more ancestrally or traditionally buy in bulk. They buy from as their standard, that's where we buy from. And sometimes our local stores will have bulk like spices and things like that, bulk items. So I recommend buying in bulk. And this may seem like, why would you buy in bulk? Because you're going to end up paying like a whole bunch of money up front. But the thing is that a lot of times those bulk items will be cheaper per pound or per ounce than they would be if you were buying them in smaller packages. They end up over time, like especially if it's something you're getting all the time, like you buy oats all the time, you're getting cheese all the time, it's better to buy like a big block of cheese, because that will last you like a month. The other nice thing about having bulk items in your pantry is that you'll be stocked for a while. Like you don't have to worry about if there's like an ice storm or something, that you're not gonna have access to things. There's gonna be like empty store shelves. You'll just have things and you won't have to run to the store as much. Next, I would, if you are a person who buys organic food and maybe you're experiencing, like especially right now, you're experiencing a really tight budget and maybe you're having trouble affording some of that organic food, I would recommend prioritizing what kinds of organic food you buy. So if you're not able to afford like an entirely organic diet, I'd recommend prioritizing the animal products, especially like the eggs and the meat. You want to make sure that you're getting quality stuff. If you can't get good milk, like you can't get organic milk, that is not homogenized, I would recommend maybe just doing like some kind of cheese if you can find raw cheese or something. And dairy products that have probiotics in them, like kefir and yogurt, I would probably stick to those rather than just plain milk. And the reason for that, and if you've watched my raw milk video, it's just that regular milk, it just is kind of dead. It's better to add some life back into it by making kefir yogurts. That's why I'm suggesting that. And then as far as beef, you can, if you're on a tight budget, get just regular beef, conventional beef. And the reason for that is that conventional beef in the United States is mostly raised on pasture, and then they do the feedlot at the end of their life. So they're getting fed a lot of grain at the very end of their life, but they do spend most of their life outside on the grass. So you could get away with eating conventional beef, but if you're gonna eat like chicken or pork or something, I would try to get organic if you can. Pasture raised animals that have been outside and are healthy. And then as far as eggs, I would really recommend getting really high quality eggs, because especially if you're eating the eggs, you're having like raw yolk or something, you definitely want to have high quality eggs, because you could get sick, and there's going to be less vitamins, and eggs are really vitamin rich food, so it's really important that you get really good quality eggs. But as far as the produce goes though, it's okay sometimes, especially if you keep track of the Dirty Dozen. Those are the types of produce that will have more chemicals on them, have more pesticides and herbicides and stuff sprayed on them. I would try to maybe get those ones organic, but then you could get the rest of the stuff conventional. So maybe I'll have a link down below, and then you can check out and see what the Dirty Dozen list is. My next tip is to eat a whole foods diet as much as possible. So avoid buying things in packages, and avoid like frozen foods and eating out. So it may seem like easy and more convenient to buy stuff like that's, like the frozen meals or something, frozen pizza. It may seem more convenient. It may seem cheaper to do that, but really it's not. Like, especially if you're trying to feed a family, like I could get a frozen meal for myself, for a few dollars. But really, I could take that few dollars and stretch it and make like the same meal, but for like in a bigger portion that would feed my whole family. So definitely do that. You have to maybe cook a little bit more, be in the kitchen a little bit more, but it's worth it if you're trying to save money. Even learning how to make simple foods, like I make my own mayonnaise a lot of the time. I will make yogurt. I will make my own bread and baked goods, like bagels and stuff. I make in my kitchen because it saves money. It's just easier to buy like a whole bag of grain and then just make all your own baked goods rather than buying bread, because you actually do save money that way. Another thing that I like to do is I like to batch cook, and also a thing I do to save money is I will use like the same set of like seasonings and similar ingredients. So I do a whole bunch of Mexican style meals, and I'll get like tomatoes and lettuce and cheese and cilantro. Like I'll get kind of similar ingredients and then make different meals, but like with similar ingredients. I'm still like in the kitchen a little bit more cooking, but if I make a whole batch, then all I have to do is reheat it. I'm not buying like a random spice for this recipe, a certain herb for this recipe. Like I'm just using a similar set of meat and spices and stuff. I'm not buying like a random spice or herb or specific ingredient that I'm gonna use one time and then it just sits in the cabinet. Like I'm using this certain set of spices and ingredients all the time. So I highly recommend, if you can, growing and raising your own food. And what that means is like having your own garden. If you can have the space for chickens or something, try to make some space. If you have a good enough sized backyard, you could have backyard chickens. And the reason for that is that you will definitely spend less money on feed or, seeds and stuff than you would spending money in the grocery store. And it makes it more affordable to eat whole foods. And that's only if you can though, because I know some people like don't have a backyard. They live like in an apartment in the city, and if that's you, then you may have to rely a little bit more on the grocery store, but you still could do herbs in your windowsill, and that could save you a little bit of money, or some plants next to the window can save you money. Another tip that I want to throw in here is I really recommend eating bone broth regularly and using the bones from the meat and stuff that you're cooking, using the whole entire animal, because that will obviously save you money. You're not just throwing things out. And if you save the bones and make bone broth can really hold you over. You can add some pantry staples like beans or pasta to it, and that will definitely hold you over. It can kind of stretch meals a little bit. And the last thing that tends to eat, money out of your budget is food waste. I think I read a statistic that only like half or 2/3 of food actually gets eaten, and then like the other third of it gets thrown out. And that doesn't account for just like household waste, but like in grocery stores too. But I know I've been in a lot of people's houses, and I know people throw away quite a bit of food. Like they'll buy like big things of salad mixes and then like won't eat hardly any of it. I highly recommend meal planning somewhat, having an idea of your meals, having a grocery list kind of planned, and that will first of all reduce the waste in the first place. But even when I plan, sometimes like I don't get to a specific meal. I highly recommend keeping an eye on your refrigerator and keeping an eye on things that are on the verge of going bad and throwing them in the freezer. And then also don't forget about the food that's sitting in the freezer. So remember to pull it out and eat it regularly, like do a kind of freezer inventory. So make sure you keep an eye on that. Don't let things sit in there. So these are my tips for eating healthy on a budget. I know it can be really tricky, especially right now. I know it's really crazy going to the grocery store. Even if you are buying local, you know, you may notice an increase in price. So, you know, do the best that you can. If you have any questions or you have any tips of your own, leave them in the comments. I will definitely try to respond to them as soon as I can. And please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys again soon. Be well, guys.